our southern border, where American communities are feeling the impact of the surge of migrants. More than 1.5 million have tried to enter the country since October. And we're zeroing in on San Diego. The Department of Homeland Security revealing plans to replace border fencing in the iconic Friendship Park. If you haven't heard of it, people have used it for decades now as a meeting spot for loved ones separated by the border. Well, the new fencing will be 30 feet tall. It will not include a pedestrian gate, essentially making Friendship Park a thing of the past. And meanwhile, nearly 1,000 miles away in Texas, Governor Greg Abbott has taken the border crisis into his own hands, giving state authorities the power to apprehend and transport migrants to the border, essentially claiming the immigration enforcement powers of the federal government. We're going to dive deeper into both of these issues in just a moment, but I first want to get to News Nation's Nancy Liu, live for us at the border in California. And Nancy, tell us more about the situation there.
Well, Natasha, Friendship Park, as you mentioned, it's been closed since the pandemic, but people are still allowed to go in on the weekends for limited visits at a distance. With construction forging ahead and higher fencing like this going in, many fear that the end of Friendship Park is nearing. Heavy equipment is already at work, and soon the final quarter-mile section of border wall stretching into the ocean will be replaced by the 30-foot higher version to match the Trump-era design, with a parallel section as a secondary barrier. Unlike the current outer fence, there won't be a gate, so the binational area known as Friendship Park will be cut off on the U.S. side. The Biden administration has already signed off on completing the project, angering community activists who fear that the end is near for Friendship Park. Customs and Border Patrol tells NewsNation that when the project is complete, CBP will identify opportunities to provide the public with access once it is operationally safe. Now, according to DHS, the project is repair work to address, quote, life, safety, environmental, and remediation requirements. Natasha.
All right, News Nation's Nancy Liu, thank you so much for that update. And I now want to turn to John Fanistil with Friends of Friendship Park. He's been outspoken against this border wall construction. And John, first of all, please tell us more about the significance here. What does Friendship Park mean to the community?
Friendship Park is a unique historic and cultural resource to the peoples of the U.S.-Mexico borderlands. The monument at the center of Friendship Park is the original boundary marker, first put in place at the end of the U.S.-Mexico War. Some people call this the birthplace of the border. People have met here for generations, uninterrupted, since the border was established here in the middle of the 19th century. So for people along the California stretch of the border, Friendship Park is a symbol of the border that, to be honest, you don't hear much about in the news. This is a place where friendship is celebrated, where families gather, where food and art and culture and music is a part of the fabric of everyday life. It's a favorite park of many people in this region, like the favorite parks that your viewers will know in their own neighborhoods. So those of us who fight for Friendship Park are fighting for it because it's a critical space that celebrates the U.S.-Mexico border, the richness of culture that we know and love here in the borderlands.
And along those lines, what do you feel would be lost if the park were eliminated?
Yeah, the park was, double walls were already erected at this location in the early years of the Obama administration, 2009 to 2011. But at that time, a number of design accommodations were made in recognition of the unique location. That exterior wall that was referenced in your report is a lattice-style fence so that you can see through. It still has the feel of a park. And to visitors arriving, you can see people gathering on Saturdays and Sundays, talking to their loved ones through the primary wall, touching fingertips. There are events and church services and other activities in the park. It retains a bit of that feel of a public space. Well, on the Mexican side, we call it a perpetual fiesta. There's just always a tremendous amount of energy and activity on the Mexican side of the wall. By this new design of these double walls, the 30-foot walls, very imposing, very foreboding, and no design accommodations to the unique location, The Friendship Park already had walls on it, but now they're threatening to wall it off, and that's what we're so concerned about.
Well, John, we certainly understand your position on this. We only have about 30 seconds left here, but I want to ask, obviously, the current legal situation, the legal immigration system is not working as intended. It is a full-blown humanitarian crisis. So if not a wall, then what?
At this location, there isn't a crisis. The border in San Diego has been secured. Border Patrol has control of the situation. Illegal crossings are at a bare minimum at this location. Friendship Park is a site that is entirely manageable. Department of Homeland Security knows how to manage this space. They can do it well. They don't need these double walls that were planned during the Trump administration. There's really no reason for this project to continue. Friendship Park, there is no crisis at Friendship Park.
All right, John Phanastil, thank you so much for your time. And we do want to turn to this now, to Texas, where Governor Abbott has just empowered the state to return migrants to the border. And we have our guest joining us now, Jorge Ventura. Jorge, first, let me make sure I have this straight. Abbott is empowering state authorities to return migrants to the border after they cross into Texas. Are these migrants simply essentially being pushed back a little farther to the border crossing, or are they actually being sent back to Mexico?
Yeah, so Governor Greg Abbott, in his new executive order, is issuing Texas DPS and National Guardsmen to basically take migrants and drop them off on the port of entry on the U.S. side. That's very important. I know many people think that the new executive order gives the power to local authorities to drop migrants off in Mexico. That's not true. It'll be at the port of entry on the U.S. side, which is still kind of creating confusion to see basically what difference does this make from what's going on now. I'm speaking to some sources in DPS who don't think this will make any difference, and it's really unclear to see if National Guard or Texas DPS even have the vehicles to transport these migrants to the port of entry. So right now, the pressure has been mounting on Abbott to do something about the border wall, but his supporters don't see this move as strong enough. The ones that I spoke to, they want to see these migrants immediately deported back to Mexico. But according to this executive order, it will not do that.
And as we mentioned before, enforcing immigration policies is traditionally within the federal government's jurisdiction, so not the states. Can you tell us, is this even legal, and can we expect any challenges in court?
So right now, we're kind of entering new territory with this, and we're still going to wait to see what the legality challenges are. This is also coming in the midst of Caney County and several other counties in Texas declaring an invasion on Tuesday. Now, Governor Greg Abbott is calling it an invasion, but has not declared one, which is really upsetting Caney County and several other counties along the border who want Abbott to finally declare this as an invasion. So we're going to wait to see what challenges are. According to my sources, we're going to see some challenges in court. But like I said, once again, the pressure is mounting on Abbott to do something, but he's really feeling the heat from the Democratic voters, but also feeling the heat from his own supporters who don't feel that Operation Lone Star has been enough, who have been kind of upset with the constant amount of illegal crosses, by the hundreds, especially that Del Rio sector who's getting hit the hardest. So we'll see these next couple of weeks what challenges come up in the courts.
All right, Jorge Ventura with a Daily Caller. We certainly appreciate your reporting and perspective. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.